Hello everyone, my name is Lowko and welcome to a best of 5 series of top level StarCraft 2. What I've got for you today is a Protoss versus Zerg played on the PTR, the updated version of the multiplayer balance patch, and we also find ourselves on brand new maps. The very first one is called Dorado. Spawning right here in the bottom right hand corner, playing with the red Protoss pieces, we have none other than ShoWTimE. His opponent down in the bottom left with the blue Zerg drones, he goes by the name of SHIN. I haven't actually seen this map yet, so I'm very excited to find out exactly what it is all about. I heard that this best of 5 series is amazing, so I'm very excited to check out exactly what ended up going down. And hopefully this is going to give us a good update as to where this new patch is currently at. So a new multiplayer balance patch recently got announced, and since then we've had an update to that multiplayer balance patch too. Couple changes that are quite significant, like for example a 10% build time reduction on the Stalker. It's now 27 seconds rather than 30. The Ghost is now 1 supply more. I mean, that's not too relevant in this particular matchup. Basically there's a bunch of additions and a couple of removals and reversals as well, compared to where we used to be in the very first iteration of the new patch. Anyways, before this game really gets underway, let's read the map description. So it says the following. Treasures of pirates that got lost in the Bermuda Triangle were found again on a distant alien planet thousands of years later. Similar to Golden Wool, the bottom part of the map is sealed off by mineral walls, but is rewarded by valuable bases and a watchtower. Okay, so I don't know who made this map, but judging by the description and the mention of Golden Wool, it's probably Subaru, man. I don't know. They haven't actually announced exactly who made what map. Generally speaking, there's like an author description, but for some reason on these maps, there is none, or at the very least none that I could find. That being said, I love Golden Wool, and Subaru Man made that particular map. Ah, okay. Yeah, that is a very reminiscent setup. This is actually quite similar to Golden Wool, which in my opinion is the very best map that we've ever had in StarCraft 2. I have always really liked that map. Okay, maybe not all of the maps out there, because then immediately we have some others that come to mind as well. But over the last like 5 years or so, I would say that Golden Wool is my favorite map to watch games on, mostly because none of the games really look similar. So the way that this works is there's a bunch of mineral fields right over here at the bottom of each of the natural's secondary ramp, and it allows you to take a base over here. So this entire bottom section is only accessible after you either mine out the mineral walls up north, or if you mine out the smaller mineral fields right over here. Now, these are skinny mineral fields, it looks like. So there's a watchtower over here too that SHIN currently has access to, but at the same time, you can also just take the other bases as well. So, say for example, ShoWTimE is not too keen on taking that base down at the bottom, you can take this expansion instead. So you can already see that there's a lot of different dynamics that may come into play here, with one of the players taking one of the bottom bases, or maybe both of the players taking the bottom bases, maybe both of them rushing out the golden bases on the other side of the mineral line. That watchtower is also going to be very significant, I'm sure. So I do like these map layouts, and even though I don't know the author of the map, I'm going to make the assumption it's Subaru Man. But we probably won't find out until the new multiplayer balance patch is actually alive on the map, or on the live server of the game rather, with the new maps. Yep, so here we go. ShoWTimE taking that base over here, whereas in the meantime we have SHIN taking the expansions near the bottom of the map. This is basically the identically, well, not quite identical, but it's pretty much identical to Golden Wool. Dorado. All right, maybe it should have been called Bermuda Triangle then instead. We do have some of those oracles swooping in. Now, I didn't quite pay attention there to the Nexus ability, but this is, of course, the new Nexus ability right there. Shield Battery Overcharge is gone. If you liked Shield Battery Overcharge, too bad. It's gone. You can get additional energy, though, on any of your spellcasters, and it is considered to be a very significant early game buff for Protoss. While it may be a little bit more difficult to defend, without a shield battery overcharge, it may be more difficult to actually, defend your bases in a pinch. It does create a lot more early game attacking potential, and obviously it's also something that just creates more strategic variety. So the way that it works, in case you're not in the loop, we can mine this from that side too. That's why SHIN took it. One of the oracles goes down. Fair enough. Anyways, what you can do obviously is transfer energy from the Nexus onto one of your spellcasters. So on Oracles, it's a great idea, but you can also do it on a Sentry, for example. You can use it to get very, very quick hallucinations going around the map. Alternatively, you can use it on a High Templar and unlock, well, for example, multiple Psionic Storms. There's a lot of different ways that you can use the ability, and that's what I like about it. It's got a lot more versatility than Shield Battery Overcharge ever had. Now, this is, of course, still something, though, that you need to take into consideration. It might not be, a luxury to put down a Shield Battery right over here. You can still use it defensively, too, so you can also transfer energy from the Nexus onto the Shield Battery. But of course, it does make the shield... Oh, there we saw it being used on the Oracle. Anyways, it does, of course, make the shield battery a prime target if you do decide to use it. So I've actually never seen that animation before. But that must have been the animation of that ability being used onto the Oracle. Very cool. So Oracles are a bit of an interesting unit when it comes to energy usage, which is why I think it makes them such a good target for this sort of thing, as we do have it now getting activated right over here. Okay, so the Oracle, it takes energy to activate the Pulsar Beam. So Oracles don't have a base attack. They can only ever attack when you activate the Pulsar Beam, and that costs a base amount of resources. When you activate that ability, you also lose energy over time. So you have to make the decision as to whether or not you want to turn it off again, because if you expect you're going to use it again in, like, say, 10 seconds from now, you're better off just leaving the Pulsar Beam activated, but at some point you certainly do want to turn it off. So there's a lot of strategic variety there, and I think the additional depth that Nexus ability adds is really, really nice. Now, looks like we're not following this up with quick High Templar. Instead, well, we did make High Templar, but we immediately turned them into Archons. And this base, this golden mineral line over here, is in a little bit of trouble. One of the low HP units is going to be popping that stasis ward there. Nicely done by SHIN. Early game for Zerg is, of course, changed quite drastically. Those Queens being 25 minerals more expensive really does slow everything down a bit. And so far, I mean, I'm liking this army composition from ShoWTimE a hell of a lot better than the one that we see right here from SHIN. Then again, though, there are some late game changes as well for the Zerg player. So maybe that's what he's aiming for here eventually. But for now, it looks like, well, ShoWTimE will be able to push back all of these Zerg expansions relatively easily. Now, this is different than from Golden Wool. We have another gold base at the 6 o'clock position. So this golden base over here has 6 mineral fields, the same for this one right over here. Regular bases in StarCraft 2 have 8 mineral fields. Mineral fields in blue, they return 5 minerals a trip. Golden bases return 7 a trip, meaning that really the income is identical, or near identical, but the amount of workers it requires to saturate the base is significantly lower. So ultimately, that should make up for some of those losses right here for SHIN. Honestly, the fact that he just ended up losing 13 drones can be nullified just like that. Now, ShoWTimE is thinking about continuing the aggression right over here as well. He apparently has also got his eyes set on some of those bottom expansions. So even though he did take his third base far away from the Zerg, he's not too keen on taking his fourth all the way in the top right-hand corner with those pesky Zerglings running around. Notable changes for the Zerg late game are, for example, the Hydralisk ability. The Hydra now has a late game ability called Dash, or at the very least, that's what it was originally called. They're working with a couple different names, because Dash implies legs, and Hydras don't have any legs as one of the sentries goes down. But it's a short little speed buff. Think of it as almost like a Stimpack for Hydralisks, which is a really, really cool ability. Although, in the first version of the balance patch, it wasn't really that significant. They have strengthened it a little bit. A couple Ravagers here, way too exposed. And it looks like this golden mineral line over here can be attacked as well from the high ground over here. So maybe the knocking down the rock tower here would also not be a terrible idea for ShoWTimE. Honestly, I really like what ShoWTimE is doing here. Yes, Zerg has a lot more army supply, so you have to be a little cautious. Yeah, but you have a lot of opportunities here for force fields and for slicing all of these Zerg units in half. There's only one Ravager here that I can see. Oh no, 2 Ravagers in total. That one missed the force fields actually, so I've got a feeling that if he just turns the guns of those Immortals onto the hatch itself, it will go down very quickly. More Archons are being morphed in, so ShoWTimE is camping onto the creep. He's not planning on going home anytime soon, it seems. There we go. Hatchery disappears. Fourth base over here is not mining for a long while already. Keep in mind that the Immortals are a little bit weaker than they used to be, but also slightly cheaper. Oh, well, I feel like you should have knocked down the Rock Tower, man. Isn't that the obvious choice? Anyway, ShoWTimE still juggles well here. Knocking down the Rock Tower would create a whole lot of space over here that would be sliced off. What about your force field behind and then target fire down the Rock Tower? Some of the units for Zerg will get crushed. Some of them will be pushed in the direction of the Protoss. As apparently now ShoWTimE, though, decides to take one of those bases over here at the bottom of the map, too. So, oh, he wants to be neighbors. In the meantime, there's that new ability for the Hydralisk on the production tab. I believe the current working title is Frenzy, which is pretty cool. Probably better. Dude, more Rock Towers over here. I don't think the players have noted yet that those are options. I don't think it would be a bad play for them to be knocked down. Would probably be beneficial, mostly for Protoss, as we have some nice force fields going down again, though. This time around, there are a lot more Ravagers, so at the very least, they can be popped. Keep in mind that Protoss does not have their get-out-of-jail-for-free button anymore, in the form of those shield batteries. So he has to be careful that he doesn't get overwhelmed. Okay. So how impactful is that Sentry ability? Or Sentry ability? That Hydra ability, rather. It's now finished, but I've got a feeling it's still relatively mediocre. I'm wondering if that gas should have been spent on something else instead. Nice pickup control right here by ShoWTimE. This is very much so the type of engagement where it's up to the Protoss player to do really well. For Zerg, there's not as much micro potential, but for Protoss you can technically pick up and spellcast a lot more. For Zerg it's a lot of attack moving and trying to set up the correct engagement in the first place. Oh, there it goes! Ooh, okay. Sorry, can we just look at that again? That is one of the very first times I've seen that ability being used actively. Here we go. He doesn't get it, but... Okay. I gotta say, that looked awesome. I don't know if it's good. I don't know how useful it will ever be, because the duration is extremely short. But that looked really nice. Okay. Storm, yeah, this makes perfect sense. Now, this is something that SHIN can pick up on as well if he moves that Overlord ever so slightly further forward. SHIN, in the meantime, by the way, has taken that expansion over on the left side, too. He needs gas mining here in particular. And while those golden bases are nice, there's no, gas guys are on this side of the mineral wall. There is one right over here. But he's not going to be able to, mine that with a hatchery over here, of course. I mean, you would take about 20 probes, and then they would just return the gas over here. But he needs gas in order to get lurkers going, and that is going to be the next step in the master plan here for Zerg. Still, though, this Protoss army that is currently out is already very strong when it comes to dealing with lurker Hydra. So, Storm, in my mind here, is just going to be the nail in the coffin. I would like to see this engagement go well for SHIN, but I don't have high hopes. We're talking 12 Immortals. I like how the unit technically got nerfed a little bit, but we're seeing it more? I mean, it makes perfect sense. If Zerg is not going into quick lurker, you can just continue making Immortals. 1 or 2 at a time, you should be fine. Okay, at least finish the job, okay? Boom. 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 Okay, in the meantime, couple Zealots over here too. Not targeted onto the hatch. They would have gotten the kill. Still, though, there's a Prism up north, and it will happily continue fighting over there. We have a Stargate coming up together with a Fleet Beacon. So ShoWTimE thinking about going into that Skytles army here eventually. Oh, that is cool, dude. Did you see him zooming away out of the storms? Well, he will not have the cooldown available again. I think it's like a 15-second cooldown or something along those lines. You know what I would like to see from ShoWTimE? Supposedly the new mothership is really powerful. I actually think it's maybe a little bit too powerful, which is funny, because the mothership has always been one of the worst units in the game. But now that it can no longer get abducted, I don't even know what Zerg would do about it. Like, I honestly don't know. You can't neural it anymore, of course. You can't abduct it anymore, meaning that you're gonna, I don't know, get Hydras in there somehow? I don't see how. I don't think Hydras are ever gonna cut it. Now ShoWTimE decides to go Tempest here instead. Keep in mind that the mothership is backed up to 400 minerals, 400 gas. So it is a little bit more expensive. But I think it's well worth the cost now. For 100 minerals more and 100 gas, I mean, that's sounds like a no-brainer. So for Zerg, the way you would counter it is with either Corruptors, which is not something that SHIN can really switch into at this point in time, as that Hydralisk, or yeah, that Hydra clump is easily gonna get the Prism. Or I guess Hydras, but how are you ever going to, there it is, how do you ever kill a mothership in the late game right now as Zerg, unless you're very far ahead? I just don't see it happening. So let's see what ShoWTimE can do. I love the constant back and forth over here, though. Well, it's mostly been a back and forth in favor of ShoWTimE. Zerg is trying to play catch-up, but SHIN's economy is still really, really nice. He does decide to go into a Spire. And he is now swarming around the map at, well, all the way through the 12 o'clock position. He's going to take down that Nexus in the top right-hand corner. Some of the highest ranked Zerg players in the world have been mentioning that Zerg doesn't really seem to have a late game unit right now. Lurkers are very much so. This is a wonderful little fight right here for SHIN, mostly because of a miscontrol from ShoWTimE. But Lurkers are very much so the best unit that you have. And it's not a great unit in the late game, you know? Like, it feels a little bit shaky. This feels like a tier 2.5 unit rather than a tier 3 unit. Obviously, Hydralisk against Immortals is just not a trait you can really make. And the same can be said for Brute Lords. They get countered very easily. At least in this particular matchup. So I like the dash ability, but I wonder if Zerg needs something in the late game. And with the nerf to, well, it's a massive buff to the mothership, but with the nerf to late game Zerg, as far as countering the mothership goes, I'm not sure what you would do against this. Well, 13 Corruptors are coming up. Maybe SHIN can show us what the name of the game is going to be. So to clarify, they reverted the changes to the Brute Lord. One of them was a bug fix. That one also got reverted, which I find kind of hilarious. So we do have some hallucinated probes going in. They had a bug fix for it, which apparently made the unit significantly better, so they've decided to revert the bug fix. For some reason, that cracks me up. Okay, let's see. Here goes that army. We have hallucinations all around the map. Nidus Worm goes towards the top right-hand corner. Should be an easy cleanup right here. Large group of Hydra Lurker, though, also just walking in there. There's the cloaking field getting activated for the Skytle's army. A little bit early. But what do you do against this? How do you engage this here as SHIN? I honestly don't know. Still though, Nexus in the top right-hand corner goes down. And even though ShoWTimE's army is going to be one that will be hard to stop, SHIN has been doing a phenomenal job out, well, macroing his opponent, right? Like, he's got a lot of stuff. Then again, though, ShoWTimE's bank right now is looking mighty fine. His gas count is a little low, but I'm sure he's going to be working on that. He just now took the middle base over here, too. I love how this map, and this is just like Golden Aura, man. Nice little frenzy over here, but I love how there's multiple areas of the map going on all at the same time. We have, like, Fight A going up against Army A over here, and then we have Army B going up against Army B. Very different unit comps. I think ShoWTimE is winning the fight at the bottom, though, but the one over here up north is not looking as healthy. Yeah, wonderful map. Oh, well, the fight over here is looking a hell of a lot better all of a sudden, too. Okay. Zerg army decides to retreat through the Nidus network. ShoWTimE has also been pushed back, though, at the bottom of the map. Now that he can set his eyes over here once more, I don't think it's a bad idea for him to continue. He decides to go into the Oracles again. I don't think it's a bad call, mostly because we have so many Tempests. And the main thing he's lacking here is vision. So throwing a Revelation on some of these units over here, or some of the structures for the Zerg, allows him to shoot with those Tempests at their maximum range. In the meantime, top left-hand corner has been acquired as well by SHIN. So SHIN has been doing a really great job, constantly macroing here. I think the base at the bottom is pretty much lost, though. I don't think he can ever keep this alive. As soon as, like, ShoWTimE decides to commit, it's gonna be really hard to achieve much. Alright. Corruptor count is at 25, which is absolutely massive. And that is indeed the only way he really has to deal with these units. Recall has been used on some of the Protoss army, but the rest has been left behind. Still though, I guess it's only the units in the air that matter there. The mothership did end up going down, but now we have all these Corruptors, and what in the world do you do with those? I honestly think as ShoWTimE right now, stop making any flying unit. It's not worth it. Brute Lords are not very good, so if you just make like a gajillion ground units right now, Zerg effectively has like what? How many Corruptors is this? Yeah, Zerg has so much supply. Like half their entire army supply is caught up in units that can't attack anything. This is going to kill SHIN. SHIN needs to do something with those units. Brute Lords are the only alternative, but he doesn't have the tech. And honestly, Brute Lords are easily countered at this point for ShoWTimE. So that mothership effectively forced out all these Corruptors. And now, yeah, their job is flying around. Wonderfully strategic play over here, though, from ShoWTimE. I think this was exactly the plan. Oh, dude, these units are awkward now. What do you do with them? I think you need to have a Greater Spire. If you don't have a Greater Spire, you can't do anything with these units. Problem with Greater Spire, though, yeah, he starts it up right now, is that you need those upgrades for the units, too. A Spire is 200 minerals, 200 gas. Preferably, SHIN has 2 of them right now, and he gets the double upgrades going, and... But now he's making +1 weapon. Corruptors, yeah, there's nothing, man. Like, there's 1 Tempest. That one was a leftover from the past. Zealot run by at the bottom of the map? I'm trying to think here what SHIN's best course of action is. He's making this look really good, though, and it's mostly because of that phenomenal economy that he's been allowed to build in the top section of the map. This is the first time that this ground army makes their way over here. So what SHIN is doing is he's killing all of the detection. He's making sure that there is no oracles, so there's one that snuck through the cracks just now, but he's making sure there's no observers and no oracles, and then those lurkers can't be countered. So the Corruptors are just diving in. That's really their only job. But as long as there's a revelation, those Protoss units are not gonna be stopped, and that's exactly what happens. Game number 1 goes in favor of ShoWTimE. Brilliant game number 1 right there from ShoWTimE. If the abduction on the mothership is considered to be too much, maybe we should meet halfway and only allow the Viper to abduct the mothership half the amount of distance? Honestly, I don't know. So I'm trying to view that game from the Zerg's point of view. So I really like what ShoWTimE did. He played that about as perfectly as he could have. I think strategically that was a brilliant game right there by the German Protoss player here. But what do you do there as Zerg? What is your goal? So I know Raynor has been quite vocal about it. He says that your only way to win is by all-inning Protoss in the new patch. Obviously, it's a little early to say those sort of things. You know, we don't really know exactly where things are going to be at, but he seems to believe that all-inning before the late game is going to be the way to go. Which is going to do the exact opposite of the main goal of this new patch. Because the main goal of this patch is to reduce turtling play. But if one race has the clear superior army in the late game, well then obviously they're gonna turtle and try to get that superior army, right? So I don't know. Obviously it's really early to say. We haven't seen any Sero games yet. I would like to think that somewhere out there in the hyperbolic time chamber, Sero is practicing right now. He is putting in the hours. He's practicing with twice gravity, and he's making sure that he is gonna be light as a feather when he comes out, dude. He's gonna show us all how it's supposed to be done. I guess we probably won't know until, well, the next tournament that Sero is playing, and I'm not exactly sure which one that's going to be. but it probably is not going to be too long. It is curious. Now, I do also think that SHIN could have done more with those corruptors, right? So, of course, they're decent against, well, observers, oracles and all that, but I wonder if maybe he should have gone around and started throwing caustic spray everywhere. ShoWTimE did have anti-air available, but it was really only Archons and Storm. There were no Stalkers in that late game army, and just forcing Protoss to warp in Stalkers in the late game is already quite good. Because Stalkers are not a particularly great unit at that point in the game, especially when Zerg has like a bunch of lurkers out and stuff. Stalkers are a unit you best want to avoid. So maybe what ShoWTimE, or what SHIN could have done is go into ShoWTimE's base and just spray everything. Just spray and pray, man. Just like it's Call of Duty and Counter-Strike, whatever. You can just spray all the things inside of the main base of the Protoss, and with 25 Corruptors, you will undoubtedly kill some stuff. Yeah, there needs to be something with that Corruptor squad. Because I am on the same page right there with SHIN. I don't think the Hydralisk could have killed it. The problem is the mothership is never going to be within range if it's even remotely controlled. So it should never be within range of the Hydras. And dashability or not, you're not going to be able to kill it unless Protoss makes a mistake. So the only way you can reliably kill it would be with Corruptors. It is kind of funny though, because in my whole... after 14 years of competitive StarCraft 2, I feel like the mothership has always been pretty terrible. Sometimes kind of useful, but not a great unit. And now in my line of reasoning, and maybe I'm a little bit biased, because I have played Zerg for a lot longer than I've played Terran and Protoss. But in my mind, dare I say that the mothership almost sounds a little bit overpowered now. Is that even... can I even say that? Is that too much? Okay, we'll have to see at least another dozen games or so before we can really pass judgment. But right now, I'm not exactly sure what you would do against it. What do you do? What do you make? Not Corruptors. Well, you have to, but also you don't want to, because Corruptors are kind of trash. Are Infestors any good? So once upon a time, you could Neural Parasite the mothership and the late game Skytle's army. You can still Neural Tempests and Oracles, but you cannot use Neural Parasite anymore on the Mama ship. As long as there's like an Oracle or two, or a couple Observers in the mix, you should never be able to get proper Neurals off. I feel like it's very much so up to the Protoss player to make a mistake for that to happen. So, I don't know. Alright, anyways. Only time will tell. It is an exciting time, though, to be a Protoss player. What is the plan this time around, SHIN? For now, he's playing survival. This early game from Zerg has slowed down a little bit. He does catch most of those adepts, but nice recall there as well by ShoWTimE. Only loses one. Forced out a lot of Zerglings there, so that is already making this worthwhile, because it means that there's less drones produced. SHIN is going to be catching up, though, in that department right about right now. No shield battery over here. That's a little bit too greedy, I'm afraid. We were very late on the shield battery in the previous game, too. No oracles nearby, although they have come home right now. And you know what? 2 probes? Lovely control right there by ShoWTimE once more. Oh. Very cool. Hydroden once more coming up for SHIN. Not too keen to go into... I guess you can go Swarm Host maybe, but that seems like a mediocre choice. You could go into Mutas, but if your opponent opens Stargate, they can very easily... Like, it works if Protoss doesn't see it coming, but it's kind of dangerous. You can go into Roach Ravager, but Ultras... Yeah, I don't know. I think what SHIN is doing here is the best course of action. Just thinking out loud, by the way. But it does feel like it's a little bit limiting here for Zerg. So the perception from the top level Zergs in the previous multiplayer balance patch was that Protoss was already overtuned against Zerg. Now, if you look at offline tournament results, you do not get the same vibe. Offline tournament results are very clear. Protoss does not win offline events, and it hasn't for a long time. If you look at win-loss ratios though, in tournaments in particular, so when you look at, for example, max specs stats as well, Protoss does extremely well against Zerg at the highest level. This patch, this set of changes, is going to make Protoss a little bit better against Zerg overall, I believe. So maybe it'll be good enough for offline events? We'll have to see. Storm coming up nice and quick. Charge coming up. Double upgrades here as well for ShoWTimE. ShoWTimE is cruising, man. 4th Nexus here at the bottom of the map. This is a lovely surround, though, that he's trying to set up right now. Good stasis ward triggers here across the board by SHIN. SHIN, by the way, a relatively creative player, I would say. Definitely not somebody who just does the same builds that everybody else does, but he seems to be mostly just cooking up old strats. Or at least things that look like old build orders. Okay. Those stasis wards, man. I feel like I've seen so many stasis wards out of those 3 oracles. That energy ability from the Nexus coming in clutch. Shindo, he's had a good economy now for a long while. Is this good enough for him to actually push with? Storm is done, though. And we are at 5 Templar. There are multiple Storms available. Those stasis wards are just shutting down the Zerg army left, right, and center. And SHIN, despite being like 50 supply up for the majority of that engagement, is the one who needs to run. Large chunk of, well, Zerg attempting to bust open through the natural expansion, but that also gets denied. What about that Zerg army down south? Oracles going in. There's only about 4 Hydras remaining. We do need some Stormy boys over here, though. Apparently all the Stormy boys decided to move towards the left. Fair enough. That may mean that the base at the bottom ends up going down. Mispositioning right here from ShoWTimE, and I'm afraid it's going to cost him quite dearly. Well, if he decides to target the Nexus, it will go down, but I also think a lot of this Zerg army will disappear as a result. I think with better positioning, that could have been easily handled there by ShoWTimE. Obviously, this is one of the first times he's playing these maps as well. Zerg army on the left side of the map, though, did get chased down. And the Nexus restarts. So, SHIN may have lost his army, but he did kill a base. And that is... yeah, that is quite nice. Now, there's the Lurker Speed upgrade coming up, or the Lurker Burrow Ranged upgrade coming up. +2. We'll be finishing here in just a moment, and a recall on these Protoss units is going to bring them all the way back home. Okay. Looks like Protoss is still very capable of defending at home. No battery or battery overcharge or not. I feel like those stasis wards were actually kind of insane. It's hard to really quantify the amount of damage stasis wards do, but I feel like half that Zerg army spent at least a little bit of time in stasis there. And it allowed ShoWTimE to buy quite a bit of time. Oh, Templar mispositioned. Looks like one of them has gone down. He's gonna need them as well, though, against those lurkers. No cancel on that hatchery from SHIN, so that's nicely done by ShoWTimE. That means that they're now essentially back on an even footing. There's the fleet beacon together with a Stargate once more. And then in the meantime, in the 3rd base of Zerg, we have SHIN going for a Nidus network. Very reminiscent of the previous game, but this time around I would say it's slightly better for SHIN across the board. +1 air weapons. +3 ground. I feel like this is the phase of the game, though, that you really want to avoid as Zerg here. It's nice when Protoss walks a little deep onto creep. Yeah, these are all mistakes, though, that I think ShoWTimE should be avoiding. Because I think he should sit back and chill and get that mothership going ASAP. He's donating a few too many units for my liking. Anyways, there was a Nidus Worm. Ooh, a big Nidus Worm too. In the bottom left-hand corner of the map. This was well within vision range for ShoWTimE, but he did not quite pick up on it in time. And SHIN immediately punishes his opponent for it. Now there is some mass transfusion going down. Brenda is standing on top of a lurker, but ultimately both of them end up going down. This Nidus in the main base is really sick. I think a couple zealots on patrol would have been amazing there to prevent that from ever happening. Still though, ShoWTimE, rather than going home, he's very good in these scenarios, decided to go across the map instead. Nidus Worm in a world of trouble now itself. Okay. Those units are not going to have an easy time going home. We have 1 second. Yeah, they're both over here. So these units are actually stuck. Unless SHIN decides to remake a Nidus network at home, those Zerg units are stuck inside of the main base. Well, so far they enjoy being stuck. I've seen that in a video once. Somebody who enjoyed. Anyways. He's going to be attacking that expansion from the low ground with the lurkers. They will be able to reach most of that mineral line, and apparently this Hydra over here and that, well, one right over there, they're in range of a couple of these Protoss structures. We are indeed going to be going back into a Nidus network. All the Nidus networks are connected somehow. Nobody knows how it works. It's one of the great things that science can't explain. Ultimately, this is a really lovely position for SHIN, but also not a very comfortable one, and one that did require Protoss to make a significant mistake. The fact that ShoWTimE did not see that there was a Nidus going up in his main base and he did not react to it at all is costing him dearly. I think if he would have prevented that, this game would have been in the bag. Instead, we're now playing this very complex situation. ShoWTimE only has 41 probes remaining right now. Spending some of his resources on photon cannons. Yeah, these bases being denied is... it's rough. Nexus even goes down, dude. These guys have been hard at work over here, but they get the jobs done eventually. Okay. Is there still enough Protoss here to actually push this back? That's my main concern. It's not so much the Hydras and the Roaches, but it's those lurkers. There's one Storm with, or one High Templar rather, with full energy. There's the new lurkers, well, the old lurkers from the main base showing up. And I don't think ShoWTimE really has the army to fight this. Now, ShoWTimE has 1 million resources in the bank, and he's not spending it. I don't know why. Finally, we see another warp in here, but he's had more than 2,000 resources in the bank here for quite a long while. Finally, we get back to some spending, but that is also really hurting him quite a bit. Cleaning up these fights, cleaning up these armies without being fully maxed, or at the very least keeping your money low, is tough. This has obviously been a very chaotic game, but SHIN has been doing a great job spending his money. Now spending his money though on that frenzy ability that allows those Hydras to dash around again. Zerglings find a base. If they move a little bit further over here at the bottom. Lurkers trying to see if they can create a chokehold in the natural expansion. Archon count is looking mighty fine though. Hydra's boosting away. I like the Hydra ability, man. It looks fun. It looks fun. Doesn't look very strong, but it does look fun. Now the Zerglings do find this base, and that's huge. ShoWTimE did double expand, however. He's also taking this expansion over here a little bit closer to home. Apparently, we're not too keen on retaking this base. This lurker is actually on hold fire. Probably crossing his fingers and hoping that Protoss decides to remake that. Spire coming up right now for SHIN. He doesn't know. There's no fleet beacon out there anymore, but he's a little bit afraid that suddenly a mama ship is going to show up. He needs something to be able to do against it. Although I honestly don't know if it's a great choice for him. It doesn't look like he can really afford it. Okay. SHIN maneuvering around the map, but trying to be very cautious. He doesn't really want to take any chances here. He knows he's one good fight away from winning this game, and this might just be the one. Is this something you can fight? I don't know, man. He did walk very far forward with those lurkers, and they absolutely disappeared. He was hoping that the Protoss army was going to be scared away, but ShoWTimE standing his ground actually gets a great engagement. Hydra hit squad in the middle of the map, though. That newly acquired expansion from the Protoss now in a world of trouble. Some of the Hydras have been tasked with hitting the Nexus. Others are fighting some of these units. Okay. ShoWTimE is slowly fizzling out, though. Yeah, and I think with this base going down and that recall not even completing on the army units over here, that may be the end for the Protoss here in this game. This was all off of the back of that Nidus network. Yep, that Nidus in the main base. That turned everything upside down. Okay. So, for this game, let us keep a close eye out on exactly what the players do. You know what? We're definitely still gonna get a game 4 as well. It's a best of 5 series after all. So maybe let's pay attention to Zerg in this one, and we'll keep a close eye out on exactly what he does, and then we'll keep a close eye on Protoss in just a little bit. In the next game. So we're starting off with what seems to be a 15 hatch opener. Generally speaking, in the past, you could, well, essentially guarantee the expansion with a 15 hatch. Keep in mind that hatcheries are now 275 minerals rather than the 300. But apparently on Whispers of Gold, if Protoss sends their probe early enough, you can deny the base. So SHIN wanted to go for, yeah, a 15 hatch. It's turning out to be a 17 hatchery over at the 3rd base location of Whispers of Gold instead. What do we do next? I'm assuming we're gonna go gas into a pool. Yeah, so I think we're gonna go 18 gas over here with the drone that popped out, and then this one probably becomes the spawning pool. Yes. So this is 17 supply hatch, 18 supply gas, 17 supply spawning pool. Now, in order to make 2 queens, in the past you needed 300 minerals, which meant that you can just continue spending all of your resources. However, do you need to cut a drone now? Because the queens are now 175 minerals each. They're 25 minerals more expensive. Do you have to cut a drone here, or do you just make less Zerglings? I guess in this matchup it's fine. I'm assuming SHIN is just going to keep spending all of his larvae as soon as they become available. And he should have enough minerals available pretty much right away. So normally you have minerals available for 2 sets of lings and then also 2 queens. We're already up to 400. So he did actually save up there a little bit. Queens do start. 2 queens, that is. And he did save up some resources here to be able to make 4 lings all at the same time. Okay. Fair enough. In the meantime, on the other side of the map, I'm assuming this will be a Stargate opener once more by ShoWTimE. Not really a great idea in this matchup to really do anything else. Plus, this is ShoWTimE, so not too surprising to once more indeed see that Stargate. Zergling speed starts up. SHIN actually pulls all the drones out of gas. So rather than keeping, well, 1 or sometimes even 2 in there, we mined just enough to get the 100 gas for the metabolic boost, the Zergling speed, and you'll probably be adding those drones back into gas when the spawning pool is nearly done with its upgrade. But for now, we're really prioritizing the mineral income. This should also help with the amount of queen production. Queen starts up at 32 supply, and then I guess an overlord on the back of this. The norm is usually to make a queen at 31 supply and then make the overlord at 33. So I'm not sure if this is a small mistake from SHIN, or if he just, well, it worked out a little bit better this way. Doesn't really matter though, he shouldn't be supply blocked for long, but you can see that he's currently at 36 out of 36. And this queen is now not spawning. So I think it's safe to assume this was a small little macro mistake. These drones should go back into that gas geyser if he wants to continue mining gas as soon as that base is available, or as soon as the link speed is done. Looks like he's just gonna let them rally towards whatever. Okay. Oracle in the meantime getting chronoed on the other side of the map. Twilight Council on the back of this. No second Oracle yet, but we could expect one. 3 minutes 35 or so is when this Spore Crawler goes down. Spore Crawlers deal slightly more damage than they used to in the past. Specifically against Oracles, it's quite good. That's the reason why they got changed anyways, to make them, since you will have less queens, the Spores now deal slightly more damage. But they also have 300 HP rather than 400. So they will be a bit easier to kill, I guess, in the late game. Yeah, SHIN trying to just stay alive. So it's still a very similar idea here from the Zerg. Try to make as many drones as possible. Make as many queens as you can possibly afford as well, and then go from there. Fair enough. So no drones back in gas, by the way. We're 4.5 minutes into this game, and we still do not have any drones added back in gas. If we want to go for a lair by, say, 5 minutes, SHIN is not going to be able to afford it. SHIN is actually just going pure Zergling here. No upgrades, no nothing. He's only at 35 drones. He is using queens and Zerglings to go for an all-in. That's the plan. That's all we're doing. I think he's done playing the later stages of the game here. Maybe he's come to a similar conclusion as to what I was thinking of in the previous game, but he is going all in right now. Keep in mind, of course, that shield battery overcharge is gone, and I would imagine that makes it much harder for Protoss to defend these all-ins from the Zerg player. So this is a link flood off of a queen march. One of the queens somehow on the other side of that Whispers of Gold, whatever this area is. We have the energy ability right there getting activated in the middle of flight right there for the Oracle. In the meantime, the Resonating Glaives ability for the Adepts is done. And you know what? Apparently ShoWTimE is feeling so confident that he's not even using his entire army at home. He is just going to be sending those units straight towards the bottom. SHIN has been adding on some drones again, but this is a hell of a position right here for Protoss. Those Adepts are not having a lot of surface area. Probably could have backed up a little tiny bit more, but this is just fine. Yeah, you cancel this shade for sure. Zerg doesn't know if there's gonna be Dark Templar on the back of this. Sometimes this is followed up with DTs. So target firing down the Spore Crawler is gonna scare Zergs for sure. Keep in mind that SHIN did not have gas, so he can't actually even make any roaches right now. He doesn't have a lair, so he doesn't have mobile detection. If this would have been a DT follow-up, ShoWTimE would have guaranteed the kill on the third. Instead, we're going into the Blink together with +1. This has turned into a very analytical game, by the way. No memes. All we're doing is in-depth analysis of exactly what's happening in the match. Ah, there's a time for memes. There's a time for memes and there's a time for analysis. Yeah, there's no way SHIN is going to be able to hold this. He knows where this game is headed. GG is cold. Maybe a little bit early, but he just... I mean, he's still at hatchery tech 7 minutes into the game. Next up, we find ourselves on Amygdala. Would you look at that? Amygdala. Amygdala features 2 gold bases that form a mineral wall blockade to a central island. Players must navigate around the island until the rocks are broken, or a gold base is mined out. Okay. This is a map for the smartest gamers only. The players with well-developed amygdalas, they will be able to perform well. Players like me, dudes that just face tank their way through every game that they play and try to brute force every engagement, we will not. No, this is not what we do. Okay, let's have a look at what Protoss does. So, pylon on the low ground right here at the conventional time. Gateway on the back it is immediately. We have a cyber core, well, not yet, and a simulator going down. Cyber core will be coming up on 20 supply, I would imagine. So not much has changed here. So the Protoss early game should be near identical. Looks like we are gonna rally that 19th probe on down to the low ground. It looks like we will be going for a 20 supply Nexus right over here, and then also a cyber core. So generally speaking, so he's cutting 1 probe right now. No probe production in the main base. 20 supply Nexus and 20 supply cyber core. Generally speaking, the Protoss build order shouldn't really be changed. It's the... There is this moment, I guess, where you want to make a safety shield battery, right? But that isn't until a little bit later. You can still just go ahead and get that done anyway. So there might be a follow-up that's slightly different from Protoss, but the early game should be near identical. This is looking... No, there's a little bit of space over here. I thought for a second this was like him fully walled in. But there is a little bit of space over here up north. That will make it a nice way for Protoss to get out of their base. Second gas, by the way. We should see a Chrono Boost to the Depth. Yep. And then a Stargate coming up at 150 gas. So right about right. Meow. Okay. That was 13 gas late. But we'll allow it. We'll allow it. He was busy microing over here. So, SHIN in the previous game went for a Link Flood with a Queen push. Now, I think overall that build order is what the kids would call very mid. Very little skibbity. A lot of Ohio. But I also think the execution was very sloppy, right? So, we caught him hitting a supply block. We saw that he wasn't executing it particularly well. Like, he hit a supply block at 36 out of 36. Which is, yeah, something that happens to pro gamers, apparently, but also to every other Zerg on the ladder. It was a small supply block. It wasn't significant, but it did slow him down a bit. He stopped droning at, like, 36. One of the queens was on the wrong side of the mineral wall. ShoWTimE didn't even have a shield battery. But he ended up, yeah, getting the correct counter, right? The fact that he ended up getting the Resonating Glaives upgrade, I mean, it's effectively a hard counter to what Zerg was doing. A Link Flood, yeah, it just gets shut down by those Glaive to Depths. And I guess it's one of those luck of the draw situations. If this would have been a Blink follow-up in the previous game, I can imagine it would have gone a lot better for SHIN. But, yeah, I'm still not 100% sold. Honestly, if something can get countered by the opponent happening to pick the correct build order, I think your build order is not very good. So, back to the drawing board right here for SHIN. I'm assuming we're going to do something a little different here, but only time will tell. This middle of the map section is interesting. So the amount of rocks here reminds me of maps that we had in 2010. That is a lot of rocks. Freddie Mercury would love it, man. I guess you can harass this base from that side. You can, So, I feel like that gold base is very mediocre, especially with the... Like, you would have to knock down the rocks, right? Because otherwise, well, we will just rock you. And we're gonna destroy the rocks and just I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Well, SHIN is apparently gonna take it. I don't love the look of this map, if I'm being brutally honest. I feel like the other maps are a little bit better. Obviously, yeah, we haven't seen enough games to really give a good judgment, but I feel like overall, this base right now is essentially toast. If ShoWTimE does anything to it, these rocks are gonna take forever to shut down. It's a cool idea, though. So I kind of like the general vibe of the maps that we have here, where they're all like, quote-unquote, standard maps with a twist, right? So we have all like relatively normal maps, but they're all with a slight little twist, which is cool. I think that's honestly the best way to create variety in a map pool, because if you make the maps too crazy, nobody's gonna play them. So this is definitely gonna be one of those maps that will be really fun to watch as a caster, as a viewer, as a fan of StarCraft, but I can also imagine a lot of pro gamers are like, nah. Anyways, SHIN is gonna give it a shot. Now, will he capture it? Or will he get rocked? That's a very ambitious project right here for two Zerglings that have revelations on themselves. I feel like knocking down these rocks is going to help out the Protoss player more than it's helping out you, but yeah, these specifically. The other ones at home seem a little bit safer. This entire middle section of the map just seems... That is interesting. You know what? Maybe I'll warm up to this map. I gotta say, Dorado, I'm glad to see a Golden Wall-esque type of map once more. So we have a different follow-up, by the way, for SHIN. So SHIN is going quick, +1 melee. 6.5 minutes into the game, the upgrade is done. Now we're going missile, together with roach speed. So a little bit of variety. ShoWTimE also, though, just playing a nice, relaxing game. We're doing an Oracle build into Blink Stalkers. He's killed 8 drones with those Adepts in particular, but the Oracles have also gotten a bit of damage in. There's once more the Templar Archives coming up. Double Forge in the back of the main. I would like to see some more late game. It seems like SHIN is trying to avoid it, but I would like to see some more Mama ships. I've got this very strange feeling in my body that makes me think the mothership might be too powerful. This has never happened in a decade and a half of playing this game. I feel like I'm saying something dirty. My mom warned me for this, man. I can't say these things, but I think the mothership might be too strong. Ay, 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 ay. Alright, so this is what warned me. This is what, yeah, this is what scares me, rather, about this setup. I don't see how SHIN is ever going to be able to hold on against this reliably. Maybe he's going to be fine for now, but these drones not mining completely nullifies the advantage that the golden minerals gives you, even if he gets back to mining in a minute. Keep in mind that Protoss obviously has early game ranged units, but not nearly as early as Terran. Terran's going to have a field day on this map. At least when it comes to that gold base. Imagine a siege tank marine medevac push in this direction. If Zerg takes that, or Protoss takes that, it's never gonna happen. Stormy boys are once more coming up though. Lurker Den is building. SHIN is gonna give a macro game another shot. He's going up to 85 drones here, so he will have the economy that he really needs. He did also make this base over here in the bottom right, so even though he only mined this base for a little bit, he is already sending those drones to a new mineral field, a new mineral line to mine from, so should be pretty easy. The Hydras are here too. Hydra Clump is actually quite large. Sonic Storm at this point is done. I think this base is still super dead. There's about 0% chance you can hold on to this base. I don't think so. With Zerg, I don't see it happening. Maybe Protoss can think about it, but nah. Lurkers are still going to be hell to deal with as well from the other side. That's exactly what SHIN is going for. Lurker ranged on the production tab. Additional robo facilities coming up. Ooh, now this is a big blink. Lovely little blink. He is deep onto creep right now, but he does have storm. ShoWTimE shouts, "Get off my lawn!" And then he realizes, wait a second. I'm literally standing on the creep right now. A little bit awkward, but those stalkers did escape. They just required a little bit of that weather forecast from the High Templar. Nidus network is the only thing that really worked well in this series so far for SHIN. So he's gonna double down on that strat once more. Seems a little bit quicker than in the previous games, but there's the fleet beacon. Now, it's pivotal here for ShoWTimE that he pays attention to not getting the Nidus Worm in the main base. We saw the amount of damage it did in the second game of this series. He needed to have a couple of zealots on patrol or something to pay attention to, but if this once more goes up, I mean, he already has a second photon cannon over here. We need something to prevent this from happening. And it looks like this alone is already going to be enough. If we need to, maybe sprinkle a couple of photons around the bases, but it's well worth the investment if that's the only way that keeps us safe, because if ShoWTimE can force this to go the distance, I think he will probably feel pretty comfortable. What if this turns into a similar situation with Mass Overseer as what we have in Zerg versus Terran? Zerg desperately trying to get a Nidus network up. Mass Overseer to try and slip through the defense. There's the Mama ship. Overseer went into the main base, but there's already a photon over here too. I think that one was originally made to deal with any sort of mutas, but none of that is going on. There's a lot of activity, though, around the map. ShoWTimE is busy trying to micro multiple areas at once as well. Tempest is building. Second Stargate coming up. We do have a large Zergling run by over here, too. Stalker should be able to defend that. Nidus Worm goes up in the main base. There is a Stalker following it around. A couple of Immortals sleeping on the job because there's a hold positioned Adept. All that technology, but Protoss never got a door. Yeah, Zealots are definitely the right call for this sort of thing. Okay, Spire is indeed going to be a necessity. I don't think Hydras are going to be able to cut this. Again, the counter to Hydras, it's not so much the Skytles. It's really very much so those Templar. And the Templar make it difficult for the Hydras to get underneath any of the Skytles units. I'm counting the Mothership in that category. Microbial Shroud would even not be a bad play, but it doesn't obviously reduce the damage from Storm. It only, like, Storms in StarCraft 2 don't get their damage reduced. They always deal flat damage. No upgrades that really make them better, other than, like, energy improvements and all that. I think you activate the Cloak and you keep this base alive easy. Yep. So SHIN can't see the base. Oh, dude. Late game ZVP is gonna be something. I think if you're a fan of Protoss, I think you need to rejoice. Because it seems like Protoss is going to be eating really good in the late game. There's the Corruptors coming up. I'm honestly so this is nice for pro level, right? I think for pro level, we'll have to see how this works out. I'm a little bit worried for my brothers and sisters on the ladder. Us ladder heroes, at least myself, I have been attacked by Protoss players in my dreams with carriers for years. I have always struggled against Skytles. It's one of those unit comps that the top tier Zerg players have always managed quite well. And I have never been able to reliably do it very well myself. Now, I'm not claiming that my Viper micro is really not anything to write home about, but it does seem like without Vipers... Ooh, looks like we had a small little pause. Anyways, without Vipers being a useful choice, I don't know what you do. I think your best choice here as SHIN is to take the entire map and try to just gobble up as many resources as possible and try to, like, swarm them. This game has been recovered from a replay. Go, go, go. Ah, alright. There you go. Apparently they had a little bit of an issue here. Where both players here are going to have to reset their brains to exactly the situation that we are in right now. Mothership, though, activating the cloaking field once more down south. In the meantime, the Hydra Lurker Corruptor unit comp. Banger of a unit composition, by the way. Hydra Lurker. Hydra Corruptor is even better. Anyways, coming in clutch. Look at the Mothership! So the Mothership itself, by the way, deals about 3 times as much damage as it used to in the past. It can no longer be abducted. And we're out. It can no longer be abducted. It deals significantly more damage. But then, at the same time, it's 100 minerals, 100 gas. More expensive. Corruptor count is growing. We need to do something with those Corruptors after the Skytles army is gone, SHIN. If we're gonna do the same thing as what we did earlier on in this series, and we just kind of fly around killing observers and oracles and stuff, I don't think it's gonna work out for you. Let's see. Here we go. The swarm is engaging. Cloak has been activated. A lot of good storms going down, though. The Corruptors are split. Good control here by SHIN, trying to mitigate as much of that splash damage as possible. Tempests are going to be in a world of trouble. Do we still have storm energy available? It looks like it's gone. And that is the Mama ship getting sniped. SHIN, in the meantime, making 20 additional drones, trying to get back to mining. He did lose quite a few units in the meantime at home. So what do we do now with those Corruptors? What is the plan? We have 18 left over. That's a lot of death supply in the air right now. But I guess it's making it difficult for Skytles units to do anything. Greater Spire is coming up on the back of this. I feel like you get stuck with Corruptors. Now, you have to have a Greater Spire here. I don't think you can do this without a Greater Spire, just to make those Corruptors once more useful. But the thing is, the Greater Spire, the Brute Lord, has a ton of overlap with the Lurker. You can use Lurkers together with Brute Lords, but it's fulfilling a very similar role. And that's, I guess, where this is kind of falling flat on its face in my mind, where I'm thinking, like, what do you do with those units? Well, once more, we can swarm in. Nice storm right there by ShoWTimE. But it's not that easy a puzzle to solve. Honestly, these Corruptors are so extremely low, they take a long time to regen. They're not like Mutalisks. Mutas regen very quickly out of combat. I think ShoWTimE is going to wipe the floor with the ground army here. He doesn't know exactly where all of those units are. Main problem, obviously, is that those Corruptors have killed all of the detection. But he's still, yeah, cleared enough space here. That hatchery is going to go down. Okay, we do have a nice little caustic spray usage here in the bottom right-hand corner. How about we don't remove the abduction ability, and instead we make the mothership not control like a boat? You know when you try to micro a mothership and it's like, woo, okay, I'm coming. And it's like super slow to do anything. It is less of a boat than it used to be back in the day, but it's still quite boaty. Is that a word? I thought he was a RuneScape content creator. Anyways, storm goes down. Brute Lords are indeed out. Additional Corruptors coming. I think SHIN is basically making a full switch to Corruptor Brute Lord. I honestly think the most drastic change this entire patch, other than the energy ability, is the mothership. The mothership removal and the abduction removal. It's huge. When I first read the patch notes, I didn't think it was going to be that significant, but then they added the abduction removal in the mix, and it's... Oh, yeah. The mothership is... It's not even that good in the sense that it's getting its 400 minerals, 400 gas worth. So it's not even really getting the value here. It's that it's... So it costs 400, but it forces out, like, 2,500 and like 2,000 or whatever, right? Like however many corruptors and yeah, mineral and gas. It's forcing out a ton of response, which is very curious. These Archons are having a field day. Here are the Brute Lords though. Huh? Maybe SHIN has cooked up something. Nah, I think it's too early to say. A lot of these changes are clearly still in need of deeper testing. No cancel on that. I think if you mix in a couple infestors and you make it pretty much impossible for these Protoss units to retreat, right? Say you can fungal it and you can get those Brute Lords to cross the distance. It's such a difficult set of choices to make. The transitions here do feel very complex in my mind. Because it's not like just make a couple infestors. Like it's not that straightforward. It is certainly going to be a mindset change though. ShoWTimE being very aggressive here, trying to deal with this army. So he's forced to go into Tempest in order to deal with those brutes. Can't really deal with the brutes any other way. If, however, SHIN makes too many Corruptors, and if he makes too many Brute Lords, I would imagine that Zealot run-bys are gonna overwhelm him too. So he needs to have some sort of, like, ground army that is maneuvering around the map as well. So here's indeed some infestors coming up. Yeah, he needs to have a moving ground army at all times, otherwise Zealot run-bys are gonna tear him apart. So he can't just go full Brute Lord Corruptor. ShoWTimE balling all his units together. He has like 5 Zealots over here. Keep in mind that Archons deal splash damage. So Archons dealing splash damage makes it quite tricky for those Corruptors to jump in and actually get the damage done. Despite the fact that the Spire felt relatively late to me, he is going into the +3 air attacks already. Protoss is finishing up that upgrade here very soon too. ShoWTimE certainly has had the money though to go for a second Cybercore if he wants to. Now this engagement is incredible for the Protoss. No reaction right there against the Parasitic Bomb though, so that's making those Tempests take a whole lot of base damage. Now the Brute Lords are mostly exposed. Corruptors need to try and get in. The Brute Lords are, far away from their creep, and that means that the rest of the army has a hard time closing the distance. A couple of Blinky boys coming in as well. Really well done here by ShoWTimE. He's losing a lot of his Tempest once more, but the Tempests are basically just right-clicked onto whatever they can hit. Any of the flying units go down. Now once more, we have 19 Corruptors up in the air. A handful of Brute Lords, though, are chasing this down. Now the Stalkers manage to get underneath. Keep in mind, these are maxed out Stalkers, so they hit like a truck. It's funny how one mothership that didn't even do anything changed everything. Like it saved this base when it activated Cloak. That's what it did. But it forced out a reaction from the Zerg player that is this extreme. In the past, you just make one little Viper Bro and you're probably okay. This is the last of the Brute Lords. Another mama ship is coming up, but SHIN does not have the money to make any follow-up broods anymore. He's also losing a whole lot of stuff in a base. 26 drones, 27, 28 drones going down. Apparently ShoWTimE hitting the return to game button to do a little bit more killing. It's our Protoss player from Germany who obtains the victory 3-1.